Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back to Detention. So I thought at the beginning of the last episode we'd be wrapped up, but that proved to be wrong. Um, we are definitely going down some different angles and expanding on the experience, and I want to continue, so I am going to continue. Uh, we need to go back into the room, the counseling office. Uh, in the last episode, we found out that she was basically dating a teacher, and that's where this necklace came from. We're seeing a guy in a hat. There was a bribery scandal found out that ended up affecting her father. Her father was cheating on the mother. The mother may have framed the father for the bribery scandal. There's a lot going on, and none of it really seems to connect to the first two chapters. We still have these syringes floating around, which I don't know what the deal with that is. We stopped having ghosts. The ghosts seem to be only at the school. We are, however, seeing more crazy symbology like this. It seems like, in part, when we see this symbology, it's showing how she was living a dream or in a fantasy, and now the fantasy is potentially falling apart and becoming a horrific nightmare. You're seeing all this blood and dead fishes now. Nails in this tree. And paper planes. Which we have a paper plane. We may have to throw it for guidance. Let's see. Is this guy going to just attack us? The teacher's desk, on it are plenty of papers. So if I drop the assignment here, it brings it back to reality, or at least somewhat reality. Miss Fang, the counseling process is near its end. I'm glad you're back on track. So she was sleeping with the counselor, not the teacher. Hopefully we won't be needing me anytime soon. If there's anything else, you should return to class now. I still have plenty of assignments to look at. So, acting pretty cold there. Maybe she was crazy and misinterpreted what the counselor was saying and fantasized that they were actually going to the movies and dating. It would kind of make sense if this whole game was a counseling process and showing that she was crazy and all of this is just hallucinations happening as people are trying to make her mentally well. Items received counseling reports. Now remember, if we, not the search warrant, we go back several steps here. There is a ripped page of counseling report. Mother is a housewife. She's negative and has troubled attitude. She's constantly tardy. She's gradually improving and requires more follow-up. Encouraged leisure activities such as reading, signed by all of the teachers. So the counselor here, Chang Ming Huai, is probably who she thought she was dating. If she really was, I don't know. So we found that piece rather early in the game, and that may have been a sneaky little hint at the beginning of the game of where this is going. Let's see. Counseling records. It's over no matter what's been written on here. There's only farewell. Interesting. You can't make that a note. Effectively, she was going to graduate anyway, so it's questionable whether this interaction was going to go anywhere anyways. Let's just pop our head in here and see if this still has him looking like this. Yep. I don't think this scene is going to change. So we got the item, and that did change this environment. So now we're back into the hall, and we have an open doorway. I wouldn't be surprised if you can't tune anything now. Yep, it does definitely seem this was a terrible turning mechanic. Yep, you cannot tune to any parts of the past. It's real hard to say that this whole act is a hallucination when the rest of reality is monsters chasing you in a school and a bunch of other horrific imagery. So I would have to assume that all of this is as real as every other part. Alright, so it looks like we're on stage. And we're also in our bedroom. Dot, dot, dot. Dot, dot, dot. So what makes her solidify? Do we give this assignment to recognize ourselves, or do we go at the paper plane? A glass cup of nauseating color overflowing with the stench of human corruption. Plates and cups clash against the walls as father's voice roared through the halls. Okay, that's a horrific poem. After a series of curses seething, all that's left is mother's weeping. Our family was once sweet together, healthy, caring when we gathered. And now every night a restless sleep, every morning hard to wake. So it goes on day by day, the anguish digs ever deep. I was shattered into countless pieces, mirroring the crumbling of my familiar world, in a state of ceaseless decay, plunging into a river of despair. I bet this reads slightly better in Taiwanese. Floating in limbo for the rest of days. So this may just be the wrap-up of the game. Which, okay, I didn't see it coming that quickly. So they just won't talk unless you give something to her. And it may just be a case of giving things up. In general, it may not matter what you give. Anticipating when we met, footsteps even quick and silent. Anticipating when we met, footsteps ever quick and silent, roaming through the neon forest, strolling past the dazzling lights. I've become a little lark, brushing past the pretty flowers, chasing all the playful butterflies. I glide merrily by your side. I've been an actor in our play long before the curtain's risen. Being held is ever comforting, longing for your embracing. Listen to your many whispers, feeling each other's tranquil breathing. So, yeah. The narrative definitely seems like family problems at home led to her getting counseling. In the process of counseling, she either actually was wooed and dated the counselor, who then pretty much was cold to her and rejected her, or she hallucinated or misinterpreted a relationship. Where that comes into the events of the first two acts, though, I do not know. Because it seems like she may have just raged out on other students and just in a reaction to potentially feeling rejected by the counselor, which feels like there should be more motivation than that. The white deer walked into my grasp. What a pleasant surprise. What a turn of fate. I want to keep this moment in my palms for eternity. So I kind of wonder if you maybe have to give things in a specific order, or if you would just have gotten a different poem in a different order based on what you handed over. That doesn't do anything. It's worth trying. All of a sudden we stopped meeting. You became distant, bitterly, colder than the sun could melt, air around you freezing instantly, and my frozen body's beating heart with each pulse tearing itself apart. Again I'm left in abject solitude, in a house that I call home, in a space that I call school, a walking corpse whose mind's without a sense of loss that's drowned with doubt. And this is effectively where the game started. She was on the auditorium stage, sitting in a chair asleep. Alright, she opens the door. Yin says, Cheng Ming Hao, we need to talk about this. Miss Yin, it's not necessary to raise your voice like that. Why can't I? What were you thinking going after a child like that? Ah, I see now how this went. Miss Yin found out that the counselor really was, well, I wouldn't say sleeping with, but dating her. So, to get rid of Miss Yin, she turned her in as a communist, or communist sympathizer at least. And then that ended up getting the other students, at least a couple other students, thrown in jail or killed. Also, now it finally starts to make some sense. And for a game called Detention, I did not see this story really coming. Jang, child, I was already studying abroad at her age. She's old enough to know what she wants. So what now? Will you lead her down this forbidden path? She only needs a push in the right direction, not for you to wrap your arms around her. This is a private matter, our private matter. It's none of your business. How is it not? You've stuck in your little romance. Did you forget about us? We were already in the same boat. Don't you forget. It'd be funny if the counselor killed Yin. So, creepy vision of eyeballs and hands. This is rather animated. Kind of looks like it might be more live action in part, or real photographs. So she snitched on what seems like 8 students, ended up getting hauled away and got blood on her hands. I would hope a painful recollection. I would hope in reality in the 1960s there never was an actual event where students were being hauled off by the military and bags were being put over their heads and they were being shot, even if they were communist, uh, Chinese communist sympathizers. If one would hope that there would have been a little bit more restraint than that. But I don't put it past the realm of possibility that it did happen. My soul is shattered into pieces when I cannot put myself back together and forget everything. Or when I cannot put myself back together and forget everything. I open my eyes and welcome a barren world. So, this is where we found her. And it seems to be more in the future now. There's a whole bunch of more graffiti and spray painting. And that seems to be a guy, not a girl. And a guy who's not in a school uniform. More possibly in modern clothing. So, it does make me question whether she is just forever forced to relive the same events over and over again. Or if she was woken up. I can talk to this person? Let's see if this door is locked. I wonder, no, they can't even open this door. I wonder if she was woken up now and was dreaming up until that point. There's police tape and the mirror is gone. So, yep, it seems like the end of the game may be just having to confront ourselves and what we did. And I definitely feel like I'm a ghost at this point. It is an interesting question when you look at these kinds of games to ask what more could have been done with this kind of gameplay. You can tell a different story, you can have some different puzzles, but I don't think you can take it to really much of a next level before you start to need to add more gameplay mechanics that probably take away from the story elements quite a bit. There was a game, I think it was called Agony, that came out, and it was visually very grotesque, but also very 3D and polished and amazing. But the actual gameplay mechanics around it were just terrible puzzles and fetch quests, and the story really wasn't that good, and it wasn't helped by the gameplay mechanics, and it wasn't helped by the graphics. Suppose you could just straight up walk through the character and save. And here you can definitely hear people crying. A life would vanish, but not our guilt. So she probably did jump off the roof at some point after seeing all the people getting carted away, because we had already seen a cutscene around that. I wish when it is click forward that there would just be an icon that was like blinking. I wish the mouse wasn't something around always getting in the middle of the image. A little dot perhaps would be fine, just in the corner, just to indicate that you need to click. Although it might confuse some people if the mouse cursor just disappeared. I am you. Yet you are not me. It's the sin that makes you linger in this realm. Memories like mirrors reflecting the true likeness of your soul. In a world full of pain and suffering, Feng Rei Shin, what do you fear most? So we get to pick. And I think she's going to fear most probably losing her life if we were just to pick. Losing her family seems to be not really the case because she didn't really care about her family. Losing herself and being someone else is not, I think, quite it. I guess it's kind of how you interpret the phrase, because she wants to live the life the way she wants to live her life, which might be losing myself compared to losing my life, which is potentially dying. So I think I'll go with losing myself. That would make the most thematic answer anyways, because that's clearly what has happened. Believe that we are all born free, eager to walk on your own path, and afraid of losing yourself. You are me. And so I got an achievement there. So maybe there were different endings there that could happen. And so now it's flipped around where this is the real world one and this is the ghost. Interesting. And so this is just straight up a gameplay mechanic where we're going to swap between different times this way, or different dimensions. That door was a door to the classroom before. Things are breaking and floating in the sky. I can't help but feel like the monsters at the beginning of the game should not have existed. It kind of feels like that was redundant and repetitive, and we really should have maybe only seen the monsters when we were playing as the male character, and the horrors otherwise should have been different for the female character. Okay. This door is blocked by an unknown force. So there's alternate reality versions of this whole building, and we're gonna flip between the two. And I don't know what we're really looking for. It seems like what we're doing is we're haunting / chasing after a person that's further in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that he is actually your son and you're experiencing memories. The way forward is the path to your past. However, the road ahead is already crumbled. Lead me anyway, and I will follow you like a shadow. The door handle's broken. I can't get in. Okay. I see. Can't open the door. The sliding door is wrapped in barbed wire. Is she still gonna follow me like a shadow in these mirrors? I don't think so. Alright, so there's different world versions of this. Definitely feels more broken. Who can be calling at a time like this? A lot of these might be straight up just flashes of what has already happened in the game. You can see all these talismans. Right, so because I went around and under, that was solving the puzzle. Remember when you enrolled? So full of passion, participating in every school activity, showing off your academic abilities, grabbing the attention of your peers and teachers. Then things took a turn for the worse at home. All the attention quickly turned into unwanted scrutiny, so you chose to escape. Grim acceptance to turn a blind eye to escape. What did she choose to do? It's kind of asking me, have I been paying attention to the game? To escape, I think is right. The world is immeasurably vast. There's always a place to hide. You or me. This place is completely lifeless. Even ideas are buried here. Wasn't expecting the scene to change. Seems like the burning books. Remember to thoroughly destroy each book and add the spirit money to throw them off. There can't be any intact book pages, or else this would be for naught. Hey, Wei. You're closer with Miss Yin. I heard that she had to flee the country overnight. Is that true? I'm not sure. She never said anything about leaving. Unlike Miss Yin, we don't have the connections to guide us to safety. Aren't you afraid? Well, actually, what bothers me the most is, do you know how the reading list got leaked out? Stop asking questions. I'm as clueless as you. Let's just hurry up and finish this. We don't want to get caught. So they're burning the books to hide the fact that they were reading banned books. A written verdict from the court. As another note. One piece of the verdict. Cheng Ming Hao, that's the counselor, district level educator, is found guilty with student Wei and others of collusion with communist forces. Cheng Ming Hao is to be put to death after the court's ruling. Wei Chung Ting pleads guilty to affiliation with the communist forces. Reading of prohibited texts with rebellious and corrupt thoughts will be sentenced to 15 years jail time. So they don't seem to have killed the student, but 15 years in the Taiwanese prison may be a death sentence, nonetheless. Certainly dangerous times, and certainly quite the activity, the bad activity that she did. Now we can't go up here. Yeah. It's kind of funny I solved that puzzle so quickly just by walking the shadow over to this side and then walking around. Does kind of feel like we're going to potentially rush through this. This is where the shadow of the student was. And he seems to be gone now. We don't have any options or items. I think the general idea here is we are wrapping up the story and getting the outcome. Door blocked by unknown forces makes me think that is the end of the game in the men's bathroom. Alright. Do we need to swap back here? Or is there somewhere else we want to swap back? Or something else we want to do? Because it feels like there was 3 questions. Or like there would be 3 times we swap back and that would be it. Again, though, we're getting a story here that really does not make us like or care for this character. Well, that was a creepy sound effect. And did that, by listening to that, change this room? Because the room seems different now. Yeah, it's black and white when you enter, like this. There's nothing to click on, but when you zoom in, you can see it is colorful. When it's back, it's colorful. So maybe that's the puzzle. Like, the only thing I guess there might be, and this is going to heavily be dependent on how the Taiwanese sentimentality is as far as how they tell a story. We may get a wrap up here where the girl screaming and crying here is being tortured and punished, righteously so, for her bad actions. And so we may find ourselves being tortured. Like, and that's where that definitely would boil down to the Taiwanese sentimentality as to whether that would be a good ending or not. There are actually very few horror movies in the West that end with the bad guy winning, or at least totally winning. There's like maybe one I've heard of. So that's kind of a comparison here. It would be weird for this horror story where you're basically playing as the bad guy. It would be strange for them to win in any form or fashion. Okay. So what have I missed? My guess is I need to probably talk to the person, to the copy of myself in that room. Yeah, because there's really nothing else here. We need to swap back again. And we missed something. Unless I'm supposed to just stand right there. Oh, there was a door. Oops. I just didn't see the door. There was another area where I didn't see a door. So twice this game has had that problem of doors just not visually standing out. Perhaps they should have maybe a glowing element to them when you hover over them, or just a glowing element in general. The bonfire of hope is almost depleted, diminishing in the wind. And I assume this is all stuff that's happening in her mind as far as the dialogue. And I assume that this is the secret reading club of censored books. Some of the book's contents might conflict with your everyday thoughts, but the material will help you engage in reflection and independent thinking. I guess that's probably the teacher way that's standing there and talking. Certainly, you know you're in a environment that's being censored if you're being told you cannot even hear other people's opinions or think certain thoughts. There's definitely better ways to make arguments against communist Chinese propaganda than just straight up censoring and banning things. Okay, moving on. Sorry. Well, let's call it a day. I do want to remind you all again to never mention the book club to anyone else. Do not talk about Fight Club, effectively. Although, in this case, do not talk about book club. For that might put yourselves and others in great danger. So Wei, in a lot of ways, betrayed his friends first by including her, or giving her the reading list. And Wei, I'd like to ask you a favor. Yes, Miss Yin? Is it about the new books? I've already given the list to Mr. Chang. I guess Mr. Chang is involved also. He said that the shipping company won't help us anymore, but they'll figure something out. The government is enforcing the government is enforcing restrictions on all imports. Soon the book club might come to an end. Well, not really. I mean, you would have some books, at least to read. I guess if everybody's read all of them, then it comes to an end. ... Miss Yin, why are things like this? I'm sorry, Wei. There's nothing I can do either. Oh, just one more thing before you go. Mr. Chang never brought us any of those books in the first place, right? I know I can always count on you. So, if this is something Fang knew about, then she effectively turned in the counselor that she was dating also. And maybe she didn't realize that was going to happen. Clipping blacklisted to return home for burial. Half a century in exile, blacklisted to return home for burial. During the period of martial law, Mr. Ying Sao Han was a wanted political fugitive. She was lucky to evade arrest and left the country only to be blacklisted. She traveled the world fighting for human rights and freedom of expression, but unfortunately died of lung cancer at the age of 50. Her last wish was to be able to return to her hometown. Now this wish can be achieved with the lifting of martial law. So this definitely paints a different timeline, certainly. She probably wasn't 50 when she fled, or anywhere close to that. I'd say she was probably closer to 30, 35. You look at this newspaper and it is printed with kind of more modern technology than some of the other printings that we see here, which are much older looking type material. So yeah, it definitely seems like we are in the future. It seems sucky, certainly, to think that martial law has been going on for a very long time, but it seems like that may be the case in this story. Of course, I don't know how much of the story is accurate to what really happened in Taiwan. It may only be very loosely based on that idea. I can walk in the dark, but I can't do anything else. So her being returned for burial maybe upset some kind of balance and recalled her spirit, but I don't know why that would be the case. So he may be Miss Wei's son. That would kind of make sense. Let's see. Yeah, he may be this guy that we're chasing right now. And so into the boys' bathroom we go. I will say, compared to the cat lady, I feel like the cat lady dealt with more characters and went in a little bit more directions, where this story is a linear story being told out of order, basically, but it is one consistent story, maybe slightly stronger story, where the cat lady is more of an adventure with less of a beginning and a middle and an end as far as a adventure story would go. This feels more like a narrative experience. So when we were looking at the bathroom, some of the doors were not openable, but I think we were in the women's bathroom before. The door's barred by a broom. There's a note on top of it. Snitcher. ... Remove the broom. So, maybe I just straight up died being trapped in the boys' bathroom? Like, how long would you be trapped in the school to potentially starve to death and not be able to kick down a door, break a broom, or climb over the top? I mean, I suppose if you did it at the very last period of the last day before a summer break at a school, you could trap somebody in there long enough for them to die, but it doesn't seem believable, and it doesn't seem like there wouldn't be a maintenance person or somebody that would find you. Although, maybe the maintenance people and teachers don't care. I mean, you effectively got a lot of people killed. It's interesting the yes and the no symbol here is not really highlighted very well. So in removing the broom, it turned the bathroom stall into more of a bedroom door. The door is blocked by an unknown force now. keep waiting for the game to kind of wrap up. I mean, it's very questionable how much more could happen here. You can see the world is getting more and more warped. And I'd like the mouse cursor to be here in the corner. You can also tell that they never really quite planned for it to be at 1080p resolution because the background here doesn't go all the way to the edges. But yeah, I would like to be able to have the mouse in this corner or this corner to walk. But I kind of have to stay a little bit higher. And we're hearing the music play, so maybe this is another musical performance. It awkwardly reset there. Yep. And if I recognize that song, maybe that would tell me more about the time frame. That definitely felt like a more modern song. If anything, it is kind of an interesting comparison where I just got another achievement for potentially getting everything. This is going to be a weird game if I get all but one achievement and then I actually want to go back and get the final achievement. But there might be an achievement for beating the game really fast, and I don't think I'd want to spend another hour or two trying to speedrun this game. But yeah, what I was saying was, it's interesting how she's kind of in her own hell reality, nightmare reality, and when we get close to this man, he's in a more realistic, happier reality, real world. Note entry excerpt. That time in fear forcing herself to breed hatred, who knew that she would take that leap and leave this world behind? Nary a last word, because of fear, remorse, the reason remains undecided. I was left with a blur of confused thoughts spiraling through my mind. When I saw the sunlight again, things had changed drastically. My loved ones and teachers went to a higher place. She was buried in an unmarked grave, leaving me a decrepit man. So this is potentially the counselor or Wei. Who knows? After you killed yourself? But then the timeline there seems a little bit off too, because I guess maybe the counselor wasn't arrested at the same time the students were arrested, because we only saw the picture, we only saw an image of 8 students being dragged, 4 of which were girls, so they aren't even being shown as part of the book club. So maybe it's a case that our character jumped off the roof after seeing the 8 students carried away by the police, and then the counselor was able to write this note before being hauled off to court and eventually found guilty and executed. Assuming he actually was executed. All we saw was that he was sentenced to be executed. We didn't see that the execution was really performed. That was an interesting little hitch there. And all of a sudden we're starting to walk and run a little bit faster again. Which it should do that, frankly. It's wasting everybody's time. Okay, I'm back. I hope and think there's a bug in my recording software that caused that crash. I've installed an older version of the OBS, Open Broadcast software, to hopefully fix that. Let's click continue and see where that places us. Might be fairly far away from where we were, and so we may have to just skip through a decent amount of story. Let's see. Yeah, we can't go here. While we're talking about this, I guess we can point out that there is 3 achievements left, so my concern about being left with just 1 achievement isn't as high as it might have been. Because if I'm left with like 3 achievements, and we saw on the main menu there that those 3 achievements are also like, if they're in a different chapter, there's a chapter select on the main menu, so that's not as big of an issue, certainly, if I just had to go back to say 1 chapter. 2 of the achievements are secret. 1 is excellent observer, so I kind of know for a fact where that's all going to come from. Well, there is no reason whatsoever for me to have to click through all of this and make you as the viewer watch all of this. Like, it's going to take a while. You can't just skip. You could sit here and click, certainly, and I'll do that, but let's just make a jump cut because the game crashed. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. That really only took a couple of minutes. Yeah, there was less there that I really had to click through before. But I definitely can tell that some of these scenes are programmed to have the character walk really slowly. If you look at the walking animation, it's also kind of herky-jerky. This is a problem in a lot of games where there just isn't a smoother transition from starting to stopping. There's a fairly smooth transition from stopped to starting to walk, but less as far as starting to stopping. And I'll walk over here just to prove that it was not the game's fault that it crashed. I'm almost 100% sure it wasn't this game's fault. This is far too simplistic of a game to crash my computer. Although it is a shame that crash happened, because I was definitely getting into this game and getting into the idea of wrapping up this game. I think we are fairly close to that, although the presence of a save altar seems to imply maybe not. Like, See, I just kind of don't know what else is left that we can do this. That this is going to keep on happening. We're back to the part of the school that has the chairs boarded up. Right click to hold your breath is still not happening. Walking forward in this part's not happening. So this is definitely a different instance of the school. Seems like we're just seeing our memories again. There's a note on the cart. So, if I walk, it won't cross the light. And we need it to cross the light. So, I think we understand the shadow puzzle here. Maybe we have to do this to then get the shadow to follow this way. See, previously, when we did this puzzle, we went all the way around. I don't know how you could do that in this case. There's no way up and no way down here. So the puzzle seems to be here. So we go this way, and then it gets stuck. And then over here is a light switch. And she walks at very specific spots. So I guess the idea is then that could let me swap out here. Acting immediately on one's determination, this is the philosophy he believed in, that someone should take fate into their own hands. With you following him, what ideas do you hold? Take hold of your destiny, live a laid-back life, submit to one's fate. Feel like you're still going to have to pick these different options and end up picking all of them. The whole Buddhist and Taiwanese mythology is really disappeared for more of a personal story. We'll go take hold of your destiny. That is a charming thought. So life has gained a goal. Next to him, you found yourself. You are me. So it does kind of feel like we are just retelling the events that we've discovered. Not really getting a lot of new bits of information. And it doesn't feel like the game is really going to end as fast as I thought it was going to. So let's just see if we find another puzzle. No matter how many times this replays, nothing can be unwound. You can never redeem yourself. It would really suck if there actually is like a good ending to this and I'm just not going to be capable of finding it. That's really loud. Or it'd really suck if you have to play multiple times. Instructor by. This is the book list I mentioned before. I found it on our teacher's desk. ... Miss Feng, your country appreciates your assistance. And remember, we had that phone call where it said your country appreciates your assistance. And I guess Instructor Bai, being in the military, is not related to the principal who was protecting his daughter, I guess. So we can see she did betray everybody. You can't walk any further, so we have to once again swap. Did you think finding something to rely on would stave off your fear? One day, however, he was gone just like that. You've lost everything you can depend on. What choice will you make? Seems like maybe the game will not end until you quietly accept. Try to take them back, calm indifference, quietly accept. This does feel like different prompts and different answers this time. We'll go with that one. The instructor's sharp gaze was stifling. You steeled yourself and performed without hesitation. In that one moment, transforming into a pitiless patriot. Easier, you think, right? You or me. This game seems to like to have dark corners you can walk in, which is fine. They're not dangerous. In fact, the game has gotten particularly safe. And we are still in the present time chasing after this boy character. It would be a little too late if it turned out that this boy character is thinking of doing something similar and we're supposed to talk him out of it and not repeat our mistakes. But that may be the ending here, is that he may be coming to jump and kill himself, and we're here to try and talk him out of it. Or maybe not. I mean, we are playing as the bad guy. It's a man smoking, not jumping, from the looks of it. Although I don't know why you would really need to go to the roof to smoke in what clearly looks like an abandoned building, or why you'd even go to the roof or anywhere in an abandoned building. It seems particularly dangerous. And now we are just back to a different reality. We now have a yellowed paper plane. From the white deer to my white daffodil, fate holds us apart, so let's meet again in another life to our freedom. So the worlds are getting smaller and smaller as the game is trying to wrap up, I think. Open the door. Cheng Hao, you are suspected of spreading anti-government propaganda, smuggling banned books, and organizing illegal gatherings. The court has already obtained the necessary evidence. We're now to arrest you on the grounds of rebellious activities. Do not resist on pain of death. So yeah, that's the end of him, and I can't imagine there's more story. Looks like it will be difficult to escape this time. Fine. Take my head so that I may join my brothers and sisters in death. Sigh. Why? Aren't people born to live freely? To think openly, to speak their minds without restriction or fear? Freedom of belief, love, and self-realization. Being with you was a happiness that was the simplest and purest kind. I couldn't help but think, when we could be hand in hand, living an untroubled life. But in the end, there's only a fool's dream. I too am vain, like the daffodils, fixated on my grandiosity. The world is not ready for the likes of us. So we get the sad music and the world is fading out. It really feels like that would be where you might wrap up. Daffodils died by the river of crimson blood, decaying rust-like into the void. And I assume that was Taiwanese being spoken. So there is one line of voice acting in this game, or two lines of voice acting in Taiwanese. I don't know if I would actually prefer it if it was all voice acted in Taiwanese, though. And definitely feels like we are at the end of the game and the character is just not here. We have a man walking. Now, construction signboard, evidence of vandalism alongside many signs of protest. This leads to the main city. So if you're going to get the achievement for all the observations, you have to observe everything. So I wonder what the paper airplane was about. Here we have a note. Amnesty certificate, a certificate of amnesty for Wei Chongting. Type of pardon, amnesty, crime declared invalid. So, there you go. Seems like the counselor did survive and wasn't executed after all. Thought I would rot in jail. I didn't expect to live past martial law. People say I'm a victim of politics. My crime was written off, but my youth is long past. Something lost can never be regained. Letter for home, a yelled letter. My son Chun Ting. Even though I witness sickness and death on a daily basis, this still fills my heart with grief. Your mother's disease. Oops, what is this guy saying? Barred from heavens and hampered, alone and wandering forever she goes. I was supposed to be looking at what she was saying. Pitiful. Was utterly untreatable. Your mother's disease was utterly untreatable. I'm only hope she died without worry, without pain. A person's body can be physically locked up, but your mind is always free to go where it pleases. Father hopes you can still get some peace of mind in this situation. Stay warm, stay safe. Your father, Jiazine. Eventually, mother still passed away. Father didn't take it well and had to take a break from his clinic work. His written words were spirited and calming. They supported me during the darkest days. Let's see. Verdict of the court, torn piece. So this was the last note that we had found with more information on it. Chengming Hao district level educators found guilty of the students' ways and others. Chengmin is to be put to death after the court's ruling. Wei Ching pleads guilty in affiliation with the communist forces, reading of prohibited text, and rebellious and corrupt thoughts. Will be sentenced to jail 15 years. Time. 15 years of my life were taken away by a piece of paper. I can still clearly remember when the military police came knocking, carried me off in front of my mother. Little did I know that that was the last time I would see her face. Maybe this isn't the counselor. Maybe this is Wei. Well, let me double check who we're actually playing as. Yeah, this is Wei. So this is the person we started the game playing as, just way older. Not the counselor, which it would make more sense that it was the younger kid. Clipping from Blacklisted, Return to Home. This is the teacher. After being released from jails, I haven't had any contact with Miss Yin. I couldn't believe it at first, but I heard she had passed away abroad due to lung cancer, like my mother. Only after seeing her ashes with my own eyes was I able to realize I had lost a familiar part of my heart forever. Note entry. That time in fear, forcing herself to breed hatred, who knew that she would take that leap and leave this world behind? Nary a last word because of fear, remorse, reasons. If anything, this is pretty much like every note in the game is getting new context. So we'd already read this note fairly recently. I guess pause now if you want to read it again. It doesn't matter what I was feeling back then, only pain and sadness remain. So yeah, that's all those notes. Several notes are missing now, which shows that they aren't important. Metal lodging for laborers. Alas, to be demolished, all to be demolished. And that's the same thing over and over again. So we're hoping we see the old lady bent over this way. If not, we should probably walk back and see if we can get her to spawn again. The old lady seems to just be an old lady that is in the present time, and that's why she was acting somewhat as a guide every time we died and went back into the nightmare loop as Fang. Be real hard to have a sequel to this game, so it's no surprise that Devotion is probably in no way connected. And yeah, I would say most Taiwanese, I suspect, are highly nationalistic, so yeah, we didn't get the old lady to spawn again. So I'm surprised how much of this game is against like censorship, knowing how their other game ended up getting censored from the exact forces they were afraid of, or how much of this game shows how much of Taiwan's history was against China. But I don't think there's much of a change there. It's just there was a government that instituted a lot of censorship on itself and was instituting the martial law, and now there's probably a slightly more freedom-loving Taiwanese government at the moment that has ended the martial law, in at least the story. That seems to be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if the average Taiwanese citizen's feelings against China hasn't changed much in this story or in reality. Either one. You can see all the fences have been replaced with just police caution tape. And everything's bright and cheerful for the first time. We're not having that storm. And we're having nice music. This is a case where the soundtrack could be fairly nice, but I suspect this one didn't really have any songs that stood out quite enough. So we're getting the credits. Producer Xing Ting Yao. Time, it rots away everything, or rots everything away. Even I could not hide from it. So I wonder how much the credits will play here. Story by Doi Chiang, level design by Light Wang. Again, these could all be pseudonyms. Wonder how far we're gonna go into the skull. I imagine we're going to end up going back to where we started. Asleep at the desk, effectively. Lead artist Ching Hing Chen, artist Shun Ting Yao, and Peg A Ho. As for the art style, it's kind of that Asian, almost black and white, manga-inspired art style. You can see it's definitely going for realistic depictions. You're not seeing the Japanese moe art style or anything very colorful and cutesy like that. It's fine. It's still, I would say, probably miles ahead of your average American Western animator. Um, but I would say it works for a horror game, and it probably wouldn't work for other kinds of games as well as much. Maybe hyper realistic or as realistic as you can do should be the way to make a horror game. Probably. Designer Vincent Yang, composer Wei Feng Chang. Mm. I don't know why you would come back to this. Lead programmer Henry Wang with other programmers as Light Wang, Smiler Su, and Vincent Yang. Wangs and Yangs, lots of similar sounding names. Doesn't mean they're related, but Taiwan's not that big of a place, so they may be distant relatives or very close relatives. Yeah, if I were this guy, I would never come back to the school, but perhaps that's a level of therapy for him to see this school torn down, this place that stole 15 years from him, all for the crime of wanting to read a few books and think for himself. There's a dick butt. That's kind of out of nowhere. Internet meme character, which is an odd statement to say that made it all the way to Taiwan. Yeah. You can see a lot of trash and a lot of boarded up, destroyed things. Can't get to the third floor this way. It'd be funny if you found that one daffodil, which does seem to have been something that they were showing and making like it was really important. Finger reusing that art. Rape. Okay. So it'd be funny if you found the corpse of Fang here, and her body has just never been found and laid to rest. But that would also imply that he was the one that killed her. Which I'm not sure she did. I think she jumped from the roof and killed herself. Unless that was someone else that jumped from the roof and killed themselves, like the teacher. And I just couldn't tell the difference. Definitely when you look at like the anime art style, where they make the Japanese characters have flaming red hair or pink hair or blue hair, that makes it very easy to identify a character at a quick glance. There have been several times where I've seen both male and female characters in this game and either not really known who they were, or it has taken a little bit too long to figure out who they were. So, particularly since they're all in the same uniforms, it would have been helpful to have at least the teacher be a little bit taller or have a different kind of uniform on. But whatever. So this is where the game started. And I think this is where the game ends in an infinite loop. Perhaps the game is even daring you to play it a second time. Seems like I'm not getting any more achievements, so I must have missed something somewhere. I don't know what I could have done with the daffodil in particular. So he's a shell of his former self, and she's a ghost of her former self. So, throughout the whole game, we played as effectively the bad person who maybe had their reasons, but I can't really forgive her actions based on the reasons that were shown. And she seemingly gets very little comeuppance. I know Buddhism is more around the idea of finding enlightenment yourself and being reincarnated based on your karma over and over again until you do find enlightenment and enter nirvana. That's my general understanding as a foreigner. So how this game would resolve that would be for her to be reincarnated as a lower caste human or a lower caste animal. But we don't really see any evidence of that. Instead, it seems like the only real punishment she may be having is that she is living that nightmare over and over again. But it doesn't even seem like after the fact people figured out or let it be known that she was the snitcher, or the person that got so many other people thrown in jail. So the record didn't get set straight. Red candles, I assume, are part of Buddhist memorial. So it's a good name for your first game, although you probably shouldn't name your company based on your first game, because then your second game is maybe gonna feel a little bit weird. I got one achievement there. An achievement called Back to School. And now we can see there is several pictures here which maybe are indicators of secrets or elements I found. But obviously there's something I didn't observe, and there's something I didn't do. Feels like it's fairly obvious that there's a blank point here. And if we looked at the chapters, we could jump back to any chapter if we were using a walkthrough and back to chapter 4. And that might help a little bit. If I were to hit continue at this point, let's just see what that does. That really does seem like that just puts me very close towards the end. Yeah, but it would be too much work, honestly, to go through all of that again and get to the paper airplane and see if maybe I was supposed to throw the paper airplane at him, or maybe that was supposed to guide me to a different direction. Maybe that would have changed the past in some weird way, and given a different ending for the counselor. Well, I definitely will say I feel like from this story I've absorbed at least a sentimentality for Taiwanese people and how they felt about martial law, if that was a thing that really existed, how they felt about communist China. That seems to be fairly obvious. It's not as surprising now that an artist hired by this company, or any Taiwanese artist whatsoever, would sneak in an insult to the Chinese president and in the first place. In fact, I might even lean to say that most Taiwanese people probably feel the same and maybe didn't even see the potential harm around it that could have befall them. Um, but yeah, it is. It definitely feels like I understand the situation a little bit better now. Oddly, I don't really understand Buddhism that much more. And unfortunately, this episode has gone really long because I kept on playing. But that's fine. We'll just wrap it up and be done with it. I think a game with achievements that is a horror game like this probably should be a little bit more generous with the achievements, because this is really a one and done story and experience. You don't want to play this a second time. Even in the example of the cat lady, which there definitely were some influences to this game from the cat lady, or vice versa, if this game came out first, which I don't think it did. But yeah, the cat lady does have some slightly different endings that you can have, but whatever ending you get is going to feel like the true ending for your experience and for your efforts, and it's not fun effectively to go back and try and get the different endings in most games with branching endings, but particularly in horror games where you've gone through an emotional experience of some sort. I guess it is in line with the Taiwanese mentality that it's okay that everybody in this horror story suffered, because that's the ending that we ended up with. We got no explanation as far as the ghosts at the beginning. They seem to be just generic gameplay mechanics added to make the game longer. I could definitely see cutting all of the ghost elements and cutting on most of the jump scare elements, because this is more of a dark story than it is a horror story. It's not by the third act trying to scare you at all. The imagery is scary, certainly, but that's not the goal. It's trying to tell you a story that just happens to be spooky. And that's probably better anyways, because when you look at Western horror movies that are just making loud noises and just having jump scares, they come off as incredibly shallow, and there's just no real desire to want to ever see those movies again, or no appreciation of the movies even in the first viewing. I guess I really don't have anything else to say. It ends unsatisfactory, certainly in the sense that there is no resolution to the narrative. The sad fact of the matter is the resolution to the narrative of this game is very possibly the resolution and the end of Taiwan as a country in the real world. Like, as if Taiwan ever becomes under full control of China, this game will probably be censored and deleted from history, as much as the Chinese government can accomplish that. There is a massive list of games that have been effectively censored by the Chinese government from Chinese manufacturers themselves and developers and publishers. So the odds of this game ever being approved is basically zero. So yeah, that is effectively the worst part of how this would resolve, is that this story would disappear, at least to the Taiwanese people, and the Chinese and China as a country would never be able to see this story told. I started somewhat jokingly saying that this game's the first spooky part of this game was going to be censorship. I am amazingly shocked by how accurate that turned out to be. I was just joking when I said that at the beginning. I had no knowledge at all that censorship would play such a big role in this game and such a big factor. Um, so, yeah. I guess I could say this is a pretty good game. It doesn't really satisfy a Western sentimentality very well. I'm a little disappointed I didn't learn more about Taiwanese ghost stories or Buddhist philosophy, even though it's kind of pushed as that being big factors. Really, I'd say at least 80% of the game is more around just 1960s Taiwan and martial law. The other elements are unnecessary and potentially should have been trimmed for a shorter story. It'll be very interesting when I get around to watching the Detention movie to compare that, but I'm not going to make a special video to discuss that because I don't review movies on my channel, but it'll be very interesting to see if once the interactivity is removed, if this story is better, because the pacing will be better and you just don't have to have these gameplay mechanic puzzles that barely added anything to the game. They probably were neutral at best, very possibly took away from the narrative. Yeah, I don't think interactivity helped tell the story at all. Anyways, I feel like I'm rambling, so that's going to be it for this series. It was somewhat of a short one. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. There is also a playlist tab on my YouTube page. With that, I have a playlist for every game I've ever covered, so I'd heavily suggest watching The Cat Lady, and if you enjoyed The Cat Lady, then watching Lorelei and I forget the prequel game to The Cat Lady, what that was called, Downfall. Yeah, like Downfall technically is a prequel, but it was remastered and re-released after The Cat Lady, so chronologically you're still probably better off playing The Cat Lady than Downfall than Lorelei, and you'll have very similar stories to this. And if you enjoy point and click adventure games and not the horror parts, check out Broken Sword 1 or 2. Those are much more fun, much more bright and colorful point and click adventure games. Although, as a point and click adventure game, this was not much by any means. Finally, if you want to support me even further, there's a link down to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list, or just a gift card. That way I'll continue to have games like this to cover. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.